Are the rumors true about the last hours of the world's most famous queen? Queen Elizabeth II, Britain's longest reigning monarch, was a symbol of stability in a rapidly changing world. For over 70 years, she guided her nation through wars, social revolutions, and personal hardships, all while maintaining her steadfast commitment to her people. But as the sun set on her extraordinary reign, her final hours became a poignant reflection of the life she lived. A blend of grace, duty, and deep personal connections. From the cherished halls of Balmoral Castle to the urgent footsteps of her family rushing to her side, every moment of her final day was filled with profound emotion. While much has been said about the days following her death, less is known about the events leading up to it. These moments tell a story of resilience, love, and an unyielding dedication to her role, even in the face of inevitable mortality. Today we take you behind the scenes to uncover the intricate details of Queen Elizabeth II's final hours, a narrative that reveals not only the challenges she faced, but the legacy she left behind. Her departure was not just a historical moment, but a deeply human one, touching the hearts of millions around the globe. In the twilight of her life, Queen Elizabeth II faced a series of physical and emotional challenges that quietly signaled the closing chapter of her extraordinary reign. At 96 years old, the Queen was a figure of enduring resilience, but the weight of time and personal loss began to take its toll, marking a poignant and deeply human chapter in her journey. Her declining health became increasingly evident as early as 2022. In February, the Queen contracted COVID-19, a virus that, while causing only mild symptoms, raised alarm across the nation. Given her advanced age and already fragile health, the diagnosis was a stark reminder of her vulnerability. Fully vaccinated and boosted, she managed to recover, but the virus seemed to exacerbate her existing mobility challenges. Public appearances became rarer, and the palace discreetly adjusted her schedule to prioritize her well-being. The Queen's mobility issues became a focal point of concern. For the first time in 6 decades, she was unable to attend the state opening of Parliament, a duty she had always regarded as central to her role. Instead, Prince Charles stepped in to deliver her speech, a symbolic moment that underscored the gradual transfer of responsibilities within the monarchy. Despite these adjustments, the Queen continued to conduct lighter duties from Windsor Castle, meeting dignitaries and signing state papers with her characteristic diligence. Her steadfast dedication to service, even under these circumstances, inspired admiration and respect from across the globe. Beyond her physical health, the emotional strain of losing Prince Philip in 2021 cast a long shadow over the Queen's final years. As her partner of 73 years, Philip had been her confidant, supporter, and constant presence. Their relationship, which began as a youthful romance and matured into a lifelong partnership, was the foundation upon which much of her reign was built. His absence left a void that could never be filled. Those close to the Queen often remarked on her quiet grief. While she maintained her public composure, moments of vulnerability were evident to those who knew her well. Her demeanor at Philip's scaled-back funeral, sitting alone in adherence to COVID-19 restrictions, became one of the most poignant images of her reign. Many speculated that her profound sorrow contributed to her declining health, a silent, emotional battle intertwined with the physical challenges of aging. Despite this immense personal pain, the Queen's resilience shone through. She continued to honor Philip's legacy, ensuring that their love story would endure even in death. She planned for their final resting place together, a touching symbol of their unbreakable bond. His coffin, initially placed in the royal vault at Windsor Castle, was moved to the King George VI Memorial Chapel to rest beside hers after her passing. The decision was deeply personal, reflecting the enduring connection they shared, a partnership that had weathered wars, social upheavals, and the pressures of royal life. During these final months, the Queen displayed an extraordinary ability to balance her roles as monarch and grieving widow. While her physical health may have faltered, her sense of duty remained unwavering. She continued to guide her family and the nation, embodying the stoic grace that had defined her reign. Her resilience was a testament to the strength of her character, even as she faced the dual burdens of declining health and profound personal loss. The Queen remained a symbol of stability and dedication. These final months revealed the depth of her humanity and the unyielding spirit that carried her through decades of triumphs and challenges. In every moment, the Queen exemplified what it meant to lead with dignity, even as the world prepared to say goodbye. Her ability to face her final chapter with such quiet determination became a fitting conclusion to a life of extraordinary service and grace. Even as age and personal grief took their toll, Queen Elizabeth II remained steadfast in her role as the unwavering cornerstone of the British monarchy. Her commitment to duty, ingrained in her from a young age, became one of the defining features of her final months. Through physical challenges and emotional hardships, she upheld the promise she made at 21 to dedicate her life to the service of her people. In March 2022, the Queen faced a poignant milestone in her reign. For the first time in 6 decades, she was unable to attend the state opening of Parliament, one of the most significant ceremonial duties of the British monarchy. Her mobility issues had progressed to a point where the demanding event was no longer feasible. Instead, Prince Charles, the heir apparent, delivered the speech on her behalf, standing as a symbol of continuity and the shifting dynamics within the royal family. This moment was more than a practical necessity. It marked a gradual but inevitable transition of responsibilities within the monarchy. It was a rare public acknowledgement that even the indomitable Queen Elizabeth II was not immune to the constraints of age. Yet, her determination to remain engaged never faltered. She continued to conduct lighter duties from Windsor Castle, meeting with officials, signing documents, and maintaining the day-to-day responsibilities of a monarch. The Queen's commitment to service shone brightest in her final days. Just 2 days before her passing, she fulfilled one of the most critical constitutional roles of her reign, formally appointing Liz Truss as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The ceremony, held at Balmoral Castle rather than Buckingham Palace, reflected her declining health and her ability to adapt. Despite the changes in location and scale, the gravity of the occasion was undiminished. Photographs from that historic meeting captured a frail figure leaning on her walking stick, her hands bruised from age. Yet her smile was warm, her gaze sharp, and her mind fully engaged. Truss later reflected on the encounter, describing the Queen's focus, intelligence, and genuine interest in the work ahead. To those present, the moment felt profound, a quiet triumph of resilience and a testament to her unyielding dedication. This final act of duty carried immense symbolic weight. It was as though, in appointing the 15th Prime Minister of her reign, the Queen had completed the last chapter of her extraordinary life of service. Those close to her believed she found peace in this act, a sense of closure that allowed her to let go, knowing she had upheld her promise to the very end. Her devotion to her responsibilities extended far beyond obligation. It was the essence of who she was as a monarch. In every decision, every meeting, and every public appearance, the Queen embodied the values of dedication, humility, and service. This deep connection to her role, forged in her youth and carried through more than 70 years of reign, remained unbroken, even as her health faltered. Her final acts were a reflection of a lifetime of unwavering commitment. For Queen Elizabeth II, duty was not a burden, but a calling, a source of strength and purpose that defined her reign and endeared her to her people. Even in her last days, she demonstrated that true leadership lies in the quiet persistence of service, no matter the challenges faced. In her final weeks, Queen Elizabeth II retreated to Balmoral Castle, her beloved refuge in the Scottish Highlands. For decades, Balmoral had served as a sanctuary where the Queen could escape the public eye, immerse herself in the natural beauty of the countryside, and share quiet moments with her family. It was here, amidst the rolling hills and serene landscapes, that she chose to spend her last days. Balmoral was not just a residence. It was a place of deep personal significance. Its history was intertwined with her life, from childhood summers to later years spent hosting cherished family gatherings. Royal experts believe the Queen's decision to remain at Balmoral reflected her profound connection to the estate and the peace it offered. Despite her declining health, the Queen appeared to embrace her time at Balmoral with joy and lightheartedness. Reports described her as lively and engaged, enjoying simple pleasures such as watching her favorite weatherman on television and spending time outdoors. She even surprised her staff and family with a relaxed dinner for her Boswellian cousins, breaking away from the usual royal formality of black ties and evening gowns. This shift in tradition, while rare, reflected the Queen's ability to adapt and prioritize meaningful moments in her final days. On one occasion, she chose to forego the traditional bagpipes that typically began her mornings, opting instead for a quieter, more personal routine. Her word, as always, was final, a gentle reminder of her authority, even in these intimate settings. Photographs from these days showed a monarch who, despite the toll of age and illness, carried herself with the grace and dignity dignity for which she was renowned, Balmoral, with its timeless charm and familial warmth, offered her a fitting backdrop to reflect on a life well lived. In these serene surroundings, the Queen found moments of joy and peace, creating cherished memories that would comfort those she left behind. Balmoral was not just the site of her final chapter, but a symbol of the balance she maintained between duty and personal solace throughout her extraordinary reign. The morning of September 8th, 2022, began much like any other day for Queen Elizabeth. Nestled in the serenity of Balmoral Castle, she was surrounded by the rugged beauty of the Scottish Highlands and the people closest to her. The previous evening had been a joyful one, filled with warmth and laughter during an informal dinner shared with her family and staff. There was no outward indication that the coming hours would bring the end of an extraordinary era. Meanwhile, in London, Prime Minister Liz Truss was deeply engaged in a parliamentary debate about the nation's ongoing energy crisis when she was discreetly handed a note from an aide. The message carried grave news. The Queen's health had taken a critical turn. Truss abruptly left the House of Commons, leaving politicians and observers puzzled by her sudden exit. Shortly after, Buckingham Palace issued an official statement. Carefully worded, it announced that the Queen's doctors were concerned for Her Majesty's health, but reassured the public that she was resting comfortably at Balmoral. Despite the calming tone of the announcement, it was clear that the situation was serious. Across the nation, concern deepened as people began to prepare for the worst. At Balmoral, the sense of urgency was palpable. By midnight on September 7th, the Queen's condition had worsened significantly. Her medical team worked tirelessly, monitoring her closely as her blood oxygen levels dropped. The gravity of the situation became undeniable, prompting immediate calls to her family. Prince Charles, now King Charles III, and Princess Anne, who were already in Scotland, were the first to arrive at Balmoral, making their way swiftly to be by her side. Other members of the royal family, including Prince William and Prince Harry, rushed from England, traveling as quickly as possible to join the vigil. Even those who could not be there physically remained closely informed as the hours unfolded. As word of the Queen's deteriorating health began to spread, the nation fell into a somber hush. Outside Buckingham Palace, people gathered in the rain, leaving flowers, lighting candles, and holding silent vigils. Strangers stood together in shared concern, united by the weight of the moment. For many, the Queen had been a steadfast figure in their lives for more than 7 decades, a symbol of continuity and stability in an ever-changing world. At Balmoral, the Queen's final hours were marked by quiet dignity and love. Surrounded by her family and the care of her trusted medical team, she passed away peacefully at 3:10 p.m. on September 8th. Dr. Douglas Glass, who had overseen her care, officially pronounced her death, attributing the cause to old age. Her passing marked the conclusion of one of the most remarkable reigns in modern history. It was a poignant and fitting farewell for a monarch who had dedicated her life to duty, service, and grace. The Queen's journey ended where her heart found peace, within the tranquil walls of her most cherished sanctuary. As news of Queen Elizabeth II's passing spread, a profound wave of mourning swept across the nation and the world.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
The carefully orchestrated protocols of Operation London Bridge began immediately, ensuring that the transition from life to legacy was both seamless and respectful. At 6:30 p.m. on September 8th, Buckingham Palace officially announced the Queen's death. The flag atop the palace was lowered to half-mast, a solemn signal that confirmed the fears of millions. Across the country, bells tolled in her honor, and crowds began to gather in front of the palace gates to pay their respects. The atmosphere outside Buckingham Palace was one of deep sorrow. People of all ages and backgrounds stood in silence, some weeping openly, others simply reflecting on the loss of a monarch who had been a symbol of stability for over 7 decades. Strangers united in their grief, leaving flowers, cards, and mementos in a growing tribute to her memory. Even the unpredictable British weather seemed to acknowledge the significance of the day. As rain poured down, a double rainbow appeared over Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle, a poignant and fleeting symbol of hope and continuity. The crowd began to sing "God Save the Queen," their voices blending into a heartfelt farewell for a monarch who had reigned through moments of both triumph and challenge. The mourning was not confined to the United Kingdom. Across the Commonwealth and the world, tributes poured in. Landmarks were illuminated in royal purple. Leaders shared heartfelt statements, and people everywhere reflected on the legacy of a queen who had transcended her role to become a global figure of unity and resilience. Meanwhile, at Balmoral Castle, the Queen's family gathered to grieve in private. Plans for the days ahead were quietly set into motion as her body remained under their watchful care. Operation Unicorn, the Scottish contingency of the broader Operation London Bridge, began. The Queen's journey to London, her lying in state, and the preparations for her state funeral would soon unfold, allowing the public a chance to say their final goodbyes. The grief was palpable, yet so too was the gratitude. As Britain and the world mourned, they also celebrated the Queen's life, her steadfast dedication to her people, her ability to adapt to changing times, and the dignity with which she carried her crown. It was a moment of shared loss, but also a reminder of the enduring values she represented. The days following Queen Elizabeth II's passing were marked by an extraordinary display of tradition, unity, and reverence. As Operation Unicorn unfolded, the Queen's body began its journey from Balmoral Castle to London, allowing the nation and the world to bid farewell to their beloved monarch. On September 11th, 2022, the Queen's casket, draped in the Scottish royal standard and adorned with a wreath of flowers, departed Balmoral. Accompanied by Princess Anne and her husband, Sir Timothy Lawrence, the cortege traveled through the Scottish countryside. Thousands of people lined the 175-mile route, offering flowers, tears, and silent prayers as the hearse passed by. The procession arrived at the Palace of Holyrood House in Edinburgh later that afternoon. There, her casket was placed in the throne room, where members of the royal family and close aides paid their respects. On September 12th, the Queen's body was moved to St. Giles Cathedral for a service of thanksgiving. The cathedral welcomed 33,000 mourners who queued for hours to pay their final respects, reflecting her deep connection to Scotland and its people. From Scotland, the Queen's casket was transported to London on September 13th, where the next phase of Operation London Bridge commenced. Her arrival was marked by solemnity, as the Scottish royal standard was replaced with the royal standard of the United Kingdom. The Queen's body was moved to Westminster Hall, where she lay in state for 4 days. The hall became a focal point of national mourning, with thousands of people forming a line that stretched over 10 miles. Some waited for more than 25 hours to catch a brief glimpse of the casket, a testament to the deep affection and respect the public felt for their monarch. The lying in state was marked by solemn traditions. The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery led the procession. Big Ben tolled in her honor, and members of the armed forces stood vigil around the casket. The Queen's family also participated in the rituals, with King Charles III, Princess Anne, and other members of the royal family standing by the casket in a vigil of their own. On September 19th, 2022, the world came together for one of the most significant events in modern history, the Queen's state funeral. Westminster Abbey, the site of her coronation and wedding, became the stage for her final farewell. Heads of state, dignitaries, and members of royal families from across the globe gathered alongside British citizens to honor her life. The ceremony was a blend of tradition and personal reflection. Music that had been significant throughout the Queen's life played, including The Last Post and Sleep Dearie Sleep, performed by a lone bagpiper. Prime Minister Liz Truss and the Archbishop of Canterbury delivered readings, while the Dean of Westminster led the service. Following the funeral, her casket was transported to Windsor Castle in a final procession. At Windsor, the Queen's casket made its way to St. George's Chapel, where a committal service was held. The Queen's coffin was lowered into the royal vault during a private ceremony attended by her closest family members. Later that evening, she was interred alongside Prince Philip in the King George VI Memorial Chapel, reuniting her with her parents and sister in a final act of togetherness. Her specially crafted coffin, made of English oak and lined with lead, ensured her dignity would be preserved for centuries to come. The farewells were grand and solemn, yet deeply personal. For many, these moments were not just about mourning the loss of a monarch, but celebrating a life of service, grace, and unwavering dedication to her people. As Britain said goodbye to its longest reigning monarch, the mantle of leadership passed to her eldest son, King Charles III. In his first speech as king, Charles paid tribute to his mother's life and legacy, describing her as an inspiration and example to me and to all my family. He spoke of her devotion to her role, her compassion for others, and her enduring promise of service, a legacy he vowed to uphold. For King Charles, the weight of expectation was immense. He faced the challenge of guiding the monarchy forward while preserving the traditions that had anchored it for centuries. His initial addresses reassured the nation of his commitment to continuity, respect for his mother's legacy, and a renewed dedication to lifelong service. Queen Elizabeth's journey to the throne was far from conventional. Born Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor in 1926, she was never expected to rule. Her destiny shifted dramatically in 1936 when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated and her father, King George VI, ascended to the throne. At just 25 years old, she became queen, embracing the enormous responsibility with remarkable poise and determination. Her reign was characterized by a deep sense of duty and adaptability. From her active service during World War II to her role as a unifying figure during global crises, the Queen consistently placed the needs of her people above her own. Over the years, she became an icon of stability, navigating the monarchy through periods of political, cultural, and social transformation. The Queen's life was not without its challenges. Her reign saw moments of personal and public hardship, including the turbulent 1990s, which she famously referred to as her annus horribilis. Scandals within the royal family, the dissolution of high-profile marriages, and the devastating fire at Windsor Castle tested her resilience. Yet, through it all, Queen Elizabeth persevered. Milestone events such as her Golden Jubilee in 2002, Diamond Jubilee in 2012, and Platinum Jubilee in 2022 demonstrated her enduring popularity and the deep affection her people felt for her. These celebrations were not just tributes to her longevity, but to her unwavering commitment to her role as monarch. In her passing, Queen Elizabeth II left behind a legacy of grace, strength, and adaptability. She bridged the gap between tradition and modernity, guiding the monarchy into the 21st century while preserving its historical significance. Her life's work resonated not only with the people of the United Kingdom, but with admirers across the Commonwealth and the globe. Her final resting place, alongside her beloved Prince Philip in the King George VI Memorial Chapel, serves as a symbol of her enduring commitment to family and duty. The world may have lost a queen, but her spirit lives on in the values she championed: service, humility, and resilience. As the nation moves forward under the reign of King Charles III, the memory of Queen Elizabeth II remains a guiding light, a reminder of what it means to lead with dignity and grace.